For more on this story, we can speak to James Creedon from our International Affairs Desk. Hello to you,
Hi,
James. The Kremlin not shy about making threats, but the question here is really just how serious is this?
Well, it's getting very serious. I think if you look at the rhetoric on each side, there is no backing down. There's increased unity on the western side, NATO allies, where there had been some degree of division, less division. We might talk about that in a minute vis-a-vis German armaments and whatnot. But certainly, if you look at the rhetoric in Russia, a lot of state TV pundits are coming out with lines such as "We're all going to die someday." In other words, there were even some remarks that dying for the motherland will skyrocket you to paradise. That might sound utterly absurd and preposterous, but I think certainly there is a willingness amongst many speaking out in any case in Russia to stand firmly behind the Kremlin's position and the Kremlin's intentions in this war. Now, whether that is part of a sort of a strategy, well, the pundits aren't, I think, engaged in that, but certainly from the Kremlin perspective, is this a sort of we know it's a proxy war at this stage. We know it's an economic war. We know it's an information war. An economic war. Is this just rhetoric? Is this also a rhetorical war? I think at some level that is the gamble that is being taken right now. Perhaps by both sides, that there's a lot of grandstanding going on in the hope that one side will back down. I mean, I suppose when you're engaged in warfare, proxy or real, there's a sort of, as the French would say, a jusqu'au boutiste logic. You go right to the end. It's mortal combat. We know, of course, that Vladimir Putin is a judoka, and there is something in the psyche of, I suppose, this particular leader, where you go right to the nth degree. You go to the very end. In any case, another factor that is worth looking at in terms of could this be pushed past the red line. The British Foreign Secretary has been speaking about taking all of Ukraine back, or helping Ukraine to regain all of its territory, which would include Crimea. Now, we know that from the Russian perspective, it doesn't recognise the legitimacy of the 2014 referendum that saw Crimea vote to join the Russian Federation. Ukraine doesn't recognise it, rather. So a promise to return occupied territories is a promise to retake Crimea. So if that takes place, I think and that is what is being plainly said by elements in the US, also now by the Foreign Secretary in the UK. So any Ukrainian attempt to retake Crimea will be more than almost certainly perceived within Russia as an invasion of the Russian Federation. So, it's all well and good to sort of test the rhetoric, but that could be a very risky strategy if it involves retaking Crimea as the ultimate goal.
And despite this rhetoric heating up, and you alluded to it earlier, there is international coordination to provide more support to Ukraine, including with heavy weapons.
That's right. So we saw a lot of hesitation on the German side about whether or not they would indeed send in heavy armaments. In the end, they have, just to speak of the Germans, agreed to send in 50 Gepard or Cheetah anti-aircraft vehicles, 88 Leopard tanks. This is a decisive shift, and there was a lot of hesitation, dithering, some would say, on the behalf of Olaf Scholz on this question. Perhaps for good reason. He himself said, I said this yesterday as well, that in Der Spiegel, in an interview on the 22nd of April, he said the reason that he was not going to send in heavy armaments before he changed his mind was he didn't want to see an escalation towards World War III. And then, of course, we saw the rhetoric from Vladimir Putin yesterday in this regard, and it's very chilling rhetoric, I think, to say the least, especially when there are videos accompanying this showing Vladimir Putin, his hands shaking apparently uncontrollably, which sparks speculation about his health. So either there is a real health issue here, which would lead one to be, I think, concerned about pushing things to the brink, or we're dealing in a rhetorical war. In either case, I think. Some analysis that I saw on this saying if there's only a 5% chance that the nuclear threat is genuine, shouldn't we be in a state of high anxiety?
Yeah. All right. James, thank you very much. James Creedon from our International Affairs Desk.